Get ready for That Football Show with those fantasy guys.
Hello and welcome to That Football Show with those fantasy guys.
And at the halfway point, we are those fantasy guys.
We are. It's week number 9 in the NFL. What a crazy week last week, Jay. Resulted in ridiculous scores on some teams and ridiculously low scores on other teams.
That Seattle and Houston game was a fantasy football bonanza.
Yeah, it was fantastic if you had a part of it. Not so fantastic if it was coming against you. Anyways, let's move right into it this week and talk about the key injuries for the week. We've got a shorter list than usual. We have Jameis Winston, Joe Flacco, Jay Cutler. He's going to play this week. Devontae Freeman, DeMarco Murray, Leonard Fournette has been removed, logged a full practice today. Sterling Shepard, Pierre Garçon, Chris Hogan's out for a couple weeks. Guess what? Jordan Reed's hurt again.
No way.
And Delaney Walker. So, Jay, who's jumping off the list at you?
Obviously, Leonard Fournette, as far as I'm concerned, he is the midseason
Technically
MVP.
not on the list.
Technically on the list, but he was on the screen, so I got him as the MVP to this point. He scored a touchdown in every single game he's played.
Yeah, he's been a beast, absolutely as advertised. If you got your hands on Leonard Fournette, you did yourself some good and your fantasy team some good. And if you're in a keeper league, you got a great keeper out of it. I'm glad I was lucky enough to avoid that bullet. Jay, let's move on to the hunt for Red October in week number 9.
Finding the ultimate sub?
Thank you. So we got a lot of teams on a bye this week, 6 of them. The Bears, the Browns, the Chargers, the Vikings, the Patriots, and the Steelers, and a bevy of important fantasy players on those teams.
Yeah, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and Juju are the guys that jump out at me because they are hitting on all cylinders right now. Every one of them is being productive and helping your team. If you have any one of those guys, you're going to need to pay attention here how you can replace those guys.
Fantastic. And it's nice to see Ben Roethlisberger start to come around in that offense. Apparently all they had to do was sit the mouth Martavius Bryant and no more problems with Twitter. So let's get into it, Jay. Who'd you have last week and what did he do for us?
Last week, my ultimate sub was Josh Doxson. 1 catch.
There it is.
1 yard.
There it is.
1 touchdown.
There it is.
Efficiency, Holmes.
It doesn't get any better than that. If you're going to have 1 catch, it might as well be for 1 yard and 1 touchdown. Jay, we'll call that one a success. Way to rebound. I didn't do so well last week. I told you to start Dion Lewis because he's controlled the lion's share of touches out of the backfield. Boy, if this was one of the runs last week, we would have been in business. Unfortunately, it was a kickoff return. Some fantasy leagues do count that. If yours do, this was a nice little boost. He had, I don't even know what he had. I didn't even write it down. I wrote down what all the other backs had. Oh, I do have it. The problem in New England was, as you pointed out, you never know where the touches are going to go. And last week, they went everywhere. It was more like rain as opposed to a solid stream. Gillislee had 11 carries. White had a carry. Lewis had 15 for 44. Burkhead even had 4 for 15. You know, Jay, I learned my lesson with New England Patriots. Running backs, I will never recommend one ever again as long as Bill Belichick is the team. But again, if you get return points, that's why we're showing that highlight. Hopefully it worked out for you. I will rebound this week, but Jay, continue success this week.
Well, let me tell you where I'm going this week. I've talked about this guy a couple of times going back to last year, earlier this year. But he's only owned in 49% of the leagues. He gets in under the wire. He's only started in 40% of leagues. Last week he caught 6 of 7 targets for 2 touchdowns in the aforementioned Seattle and Houston game. This week, the Redskins are traveling up to the Northwest to go against Seattle. Seattle's D is not exactly as good as it's been in the past. Check the Houston game. So the Seattle O is going to have to put up some points. And pretty much the most reliable offensive target outside the tight end this year has been Madden certified Paul Richardson. Go out and add him if you can. He's going to have another good week because Washington's defense, yes, they have some players, but they also have some injuries and they give up some points. So I think he's going to be able to beat them deep and have a big play or two and probably have 87 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, and Richardson's not the #1 target on that offense either, so he's not going to draw the top corner in Washington.
He's not even top 2. He's number 3.
That's right, and maybe even behind Jimmy Graham for targets. But as long as he keeps producing like that, he's going to do great things for your fantasy team. And Russell Wilson quietly having one of the better seasons of his career and one of the better seasons of 2017.
Absolutely.
Russell Wilson's a guy to watch for the rest of this year and going forward. He's really coming on as a stud young quarterback in this year of turnover in the NFL, if you
Absolutely.
will. We talked about it earlier in the season. There's a lot of older players moving out, and they're being replaced nicely by some of these younger players. They're getting opportunities, and they are stepping up big, just like your
Paul Richardson.
Hunt for Red October. Thank you very much. Jay, this week, it's easy. The Hunt for Red October is Alfred Morris because Ezekiel is finally suspended for real. Now, he's owned in 61% of leagues, so that doesn't really qualify, but we'll get to that in just a minute. That means that 61% of Zeke owners are the only ones that backed up their stud running back. It's unbelievable to me that with this suspension looming that more people didn't go out and add Alfred Morris just to cover themselves. And now,
well, I think they did add him and then cut him when Zeke was reinstated, then add him, then cut him. So I think they just got sick of the yo-yo taking up the roster spot.
I hear you, but it's like backing up any one of your other studs. You just have to eat up that roster spot if there's any doubt. And I mean, look at the guy who's proven already this season that he can get it done behind one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. And he's got an 8-yard per average carry. Now that's going to come down with the more carries, but that is pretty impressive in and of itself. So obviously, Alfred Morris is the #1 back across all fantasy leagues. But there's more. As you know, Jay Ajayi has been shipped off to Philadelphia, and that leaves a hole in the Miami backfield. And that leaves Kenyon Drake as the lone man on the totem pole in Miami. This is a guy we talked about last year. Jay, this is the new banger for the Miami Dolphins. He is not going to be on the field for receiving downs, but he will be there on first and second down, has the wheels and the foresight to get outside. If you are able to go out and add Drake to your fantasy team, this is a guy that could have an impact on your fantasy team down the stretch because he's going to get all of the carries from here on out. There's no one else there that's going to sneak up and take away his carries. I know there's another running back there, but he's a pass-catching scat back. This is the guy that's going to replace Ajayi on Sunday. But wait, there's more. With all of the excitement surrounding Zeke Elliott's suspension and Jay Ajayi getting traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, people may have forgotten the best bang for your buck that's out there, and that is Alex Collins. Alex Collins played on Thursday Night Football and had the game of his career. I personally have been waiting for Alex Collins to break out for most of the season. I have him rostered in the only 2 fantasy leagues that I'm in. That's right, I'm only in 2. I know you are as well. We don't do a bunch of free leagues, and I've been waiting and waiting and waiting. And unfortunately, with my bye weeks, I had to let him go this week. So he went off. And he went off on Thursday Night Football, which is good for you, the viewer and fantasy owner, because it gives you the opportunity to go out and add him. Fantasy owners have very short memories, and they, for some reason, tend to forget players when they have big games from season to season, and even from Thursday to weekly ads. And with the excitement I said around Ajayi and Zeke Elliott getting suspended, there's a lot of distractions going on, and this is a guy you might be able to sneak out, and he is the starter now and moving forward for the rest of the season for Baltimore on a team who desperately needs playmakers. And Jay, we talked about per yard average for Alfred Morris. Check this out. Alex Collins, who's owned only in 50% of leagues, has the highest per yard average of any running back to qualify with 50 or more carries at 6 yards per carry. That is an outstanding average when you're carrying the ball as much as he has. If you can go out and add Alex Collins, this is the #1 ad on my book this week. And unfortunately, I let him go, and I have a feeling he's going to you in that league. But anyways, those are my picks. And like I said, it's nice to have all of this distraction and also have Alex Collins playing a lifetime ago on Thursday Night Football, it means you might be able to go out and grab him. So if you can, do so. If you have nothing else, we will move on.
I'm just writing that Collins. I'll look into him.
And if you were watching the Thursday night game, you know that he does what? The Irish jig?
Yes,
Is that what it is?
Irish step dance or something
Fantastic.
like that.
Step dance your way to your free agent wire and pick up Alex Collins if you can. Let's move on to tough sits.
Sit down, Waldo.
How do you like this for my tough sit? Last week, I told you Matthew Stafford was going to have a tough week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He threw the ball all over the yard, but what did I tell you he was not going to do? He was not going to score a touchdown.
You were accurate.
0.
It was 427 yards.
And 0 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you the 0 touchdowns. Jay, last week I told you that Amari Cooper was going to stink it up in Buffalo, and he did exactly that after having a monster game. He received 10 targets, had 5 catches for 48 yards, and I told you to sit him down, but I bet that a lot of fantasy owners just couldn't bring themselves to do it after a 210-yard day and 2 touchdowns. But guess what, smart guy? You just got rewarded with a stinker of a game, and Amari Cooper proved once again he's not even the best wide receiver on that team. Michael Crabtree out-touched him, out-rushed him, and even, I think, caught a touchdown. Amari Cooper is nothing more than an average fantasy wide receiver that will drag your fantasy team down. If you can, get rid of him. Jay, who do you have for us this week?
This week I'm going at another stud wide receiver. I'm going at you, AJ Green. He's owned in how many? 100% of leagues. He started in what? 99% of the leagues. That 1%, maybe people that aren't even paying attention because they're 0-8, 0-9, whatever the case may be. But right now, point blank, Jalen Ramsey is going to shut him down. The Jacksonville Jaguars defense is nasty. It might be the number 1 or number 2 pass defense in the NFL. Why? Jalen Ramsey. He's built like a linebacker. He's got the speed of a slot cornerback, the size of a linebacker. He's going to go up against AJ Green, and it is never a good time to really sit AJ Green. But if I don't think he has any touchdowns, or maybe 1 touchdown to this point this year. He ain't getting one this week. And I'll tell you what, you remember what Jacksonville did to the Steelers a couple weeks ago?
Absolutely.
They're going to do that plus to the Bengals.
Wow, that's a big prediction to sit AJ Green down, but I like it. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are number 3 in pass defense. They are very good from the line to the safeties and everywhere in between. That defense is great. As a matter of fact, we were talking just before the show, they don't rank very highly against the run because no one can pass against them. They have to run. So they're getting yards logged against them in the run just simply because no one can pass against them. Talk about the Denver no-fly zone. This is like a Jacksonville no-fly zone. Yep. So that Jacksonville defense is for real, and I like the pick. Jay, this week, and we had a little discussion about this. You gave me a little bit of tar for this, let's say, because I'm saying that Jay Ajayi is my tough sit this week, and you said that's not a tough sit at all. But here's the thing. I read fantasy websites just like every one of you, and I see everyone talking up Jay Ajayi and how his value has gone up, and he's going to be a better running back, and he plays for a contender, and they can throw the ball, and blah, blah, yabbity, blah, blah. Well, guess what? You Jay Ajayi owners are going to have to suffer one more week of terrible output from Jay Ajayi because the Denver defense, not the no-fly zone, the no-run zone, is coming to town. Jay, can you believe that the Denver defense is allowing just 70 yards rushing per game and has yet to allow a rushing touchdown? That is an astonishing stat in and of itself, but then once you take into consideration the fact of how bad the Broncos' offense has been, it means that they're giving teams every opportunity to run the ball against them. And still, 70 yards a game, no rushing touchdowns. Jay Ajayi, as you aptly pointed out, has just arrived in town and may not be fully immersed in the offense yet. I still believe that he's going to get started in 70 to 85% of leagues this week, and that's a mistake. Jay, we're here not only to tell you things you don't know, but to tell you things you know to help you remember to do them. Sit down, Jay Ajayi, this week for the reasons that you pointed out and also the fact that he's playing that Denver defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great pick / easy pick just because.
I'll take it. I'll take an easy pick.
I don't think that there's any reason that anybody should be starting him this week. He just got traded to teams. Why? The coach went out of the way to say in Miami that he did not know his assignments when he was in Miami, where he's been for 3 years. There's no way he's going to know his assignments in Philadelphia. I don't see this. He might get a touch or two this week, but he's not going to get a heavy workload. They have a gold line back in LeGarrette Blount, so he's not going to snipe one of those. So I just don't see where the upside is in playing Jay Ajayi this week.
I agree 100%, and that's why he's my tough sit. Your
I'm
point
just saying
is
it's an easy sit.
It's an easy sit. I still think, I'll make a note, and I know, speaking of which, Jay won't be here next week. He's going to be on assignment in San Diego. So we will have Rich sitting in for him. But I'm going to make a note, and we will take a look and see how many people start Ajayi this week, because I think it's going to be a lot, way more than there should be. And that's why I picked it as my tough sit.
You got it.
So let's move on to Wall Street. Jay, Wall Street is where we tell you about players you've never heard of that you should buy and players that you've all heard of that you should sell. Who do you have for us this week?
This week I'm going with a buy low.
Okay.
Someone you may or may not have heard of. I know you're not a big follower of college football.
I'm trying to better myself in the college football world.
The number one or top 2 or 3 tight end coming into this year in college was a guy that plays for Michigan named Jake Butt.
Wait, Jake Butt, and he's a tight end?
Yes.
I love it.
I love it. So on that note, in his
You're just doing it because of his name, right?
In his bowl game, he took a pretty gruesome injury in his bowl game. But he's coming back. If you're going to need a tight end right now is a wasteland. There's Travis Kelce, there's Gronk, there's Zach Ertz, and then there's everybody else that's 100% interchangeable. But this guy might have a chance to give you a little boost. You can get him for free right now as we speak. Denver's offense is a mess. As they work the younger quarterback, and they're going back to Brock Osweiler.
Yep.
Denver's going to keep them in position to score.
Absolutely.
And the quarterback security, Benke, as you always like to say, is the TE. Butt was going to be a first or second round pick before he got hurt. He's going to be coming back pretty soon off the PUP list, and I think he's a guy that just out of necessity, the tight end that Denver has drops every single pass that's thrown to him.
Sure.
So this guy is going to be somebody you can absolutely get for free right now that might be able to help you in the fantasy playoffs if you have one of those interchangeable tight ends.
I like this pick, and I'll tell you why. I don't know a lot about Jake Butt. I've seen the highlights.
He's a tight end.
He's a tight end. I know that. I know he plays for Denver. But here's the thing. As you mentioned, Brock Osweiler is coming back to start. Osweiler has shown a bit of a tendency to go to his tight ends. And as Butt works his way back in, as he butts his way back in, I wish I had said it that way the first time, I think that Osweiler could look to him as a red zone target. I know he's a big kid. I like the pick, and I love that you're looking forward to the fantasy championships, which is what you should all be doing at this point. Jay, I love that you're talking fantasy championships, but I want to talk about a guy that you can add this week in the wake of Rob Gronkowski being out. Hunter Henry's not in there. And like you said, everybody else is interchangeable outside of Zach Ertz and Travis Kelce. Jay, this week, if you can believe it, Jordan Reed is hurt again.
No, what?
He's hurt.
What?
I know it's hard to believe. But
I'm getting a sense of deja vu.
I feel like Jordan Reed is hurt more often than he's not. I feel like that red cross is always behind his name. But anyways, the point is that he's listed as questionable, but he's not going to play from my sources. That leaves the door wide open for Vernon Davis to step up and take the lead role as the tight end for the Washington Redskins, who, again, are desperate for wide receiving targets. You saw it last week. Jamison Crowder started to come on. The quarterback there, Kirk Cousins, is starting to spread the ball around. Finally, we've been waiting all season, but now here it comes. Anyways, Davis has 17 catches for 32 yards and a touchdown. And when Reed doesn't play, Davis becomes maybe the number one target on that team, especially in the red zone. But he's got wheels, and for those fantasy owners that remember him from his San Francisco days, this guy can light up the scoreboard. He's going to have a chance to do it this week. He's got a tough matchup going up to Seattle. but somebody's got to catch the ball, and I think it's going to be Vernon Davis. Jamison Crowder might not even play this week. That puts Davis in a perfect position to go out and put up fantasy stats on your team. If you've got Gronk or Hunter Henry or just are wasting away in tight end obliviousness, oblivion from the booth, a tight end oblivion, and you need a tight end. Vernon Davis is the guy to go out and add this week. You should be able to get him relatively cheaply. He is on people's fantasy radar, but again, fantasy owners like shiny things, and there aren't many more shiny things out there than Alfred Morris this week. So that kind of overrules everything. I think you can sneak Vernon Davis onto your team. Jay? Let's move on to weekly leagues. This is your wheelhouse. Let's hear it. Weekly leagues, baby. As a matter of fact, I wanted to mention, and this wasn't in the script, we didn't talk about it, and I apologize for that, but didn't you bring up Juju Smith-Schuster in this segment a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I did.
So that's not for nothing, but if you all watched fantasy football last weekend or the NFL, you knew that Juju had kind of a good game.
Yeah, that 97-yard touchdown.
So we'll put that one right over here on the win list for TFS. And that's why you watch TFS, and that's why you listen to Jay. Let us have it.
Texan, any Texan.
There
Pick
you go.
one. Doesn't
Love
matter.
it. Yeah, and tell us why. The Texans are playing the Indianapolis Colts.
Texans are playing the Colts. Deshaun Watson
is phenomenal.
Going off. Hopkins, phenomenal. Fuller, phenomenal. I don't care which one you like.
Yeah.
Just pick one and build your team around that because they're all getting points.
Yeah, absolutely. Watson's price, I imagine, is out of the
I would look
spectrum.
at that. You know, if you see another quarterback that you think could be a good matchup, pick one of the wide receivers. Or if you favor one of the wide receivers over the other, just take the cheaper one.
And without, that's exactly what I was going to say. Without knowing, I would almost venture to bet that Hopkins' value is a little bit lower than Fuller's because of the lack of touchdowns.
Yeah.
Right. So, but Hopkins is every bit as good a wide receiver as Fuller. Just pick one, as you said. Throw the cards up in the air, and whichever one lands face up. Jay, let's move on to the Facebook question. We didn't type it up this week because we got a bevy of questions from a bevy of people, but they were all kind of the same. They revolved around three people. Is Jimmy G worth an ad in San Francisco? What does it mean for Calvin Benjamin to be traveling up to the Buffalo Bills? And what about Jay Ajayi to the Eagles? Jay, take it away. Pick one, and I'll grab another one.
Well, we've already covered the Jay Ajayi.
We did, yes.
So
thank you for pronouncing it correctly.
I will go with the Calvin Benjamin. This really kind of bothers me as a Calvin Benjamin owner. I
can imagine. Yeah.
I mean, wide receivers, it's maybe one of the hardest positions to learn and build rapport with the quarterback. Absolutely. I don't ever remember a wide receiver being traded mid-season and it being effective in that season. But that being said, Tyrod Taylor is having a sneaky good fantasy year.
I'm with you.
He just got a new toy. And again, like we always talk about, or I always talk about, it's about the playoffs. And he might not be good for 2 or 3 weeks. But let's see, we're in week 8, 9, 10. 3 weeks is fantasy playoffs. So if he can come around, I would not cut him. I wouldn't expect anything from him now. But when it comes time to earn the money, maybe he gets a touchdown up in the corner, a little fade to the corner, fade stop or something like that, and you get your points right there. So I think it's going to be a rocky road because it's already been a rocky road for him to this point in the season, which is why he's traded. The road is going to get rockier, but there might be a light at the end of the tunnel.
See, I have a more optimistic outlook of this. If you look at the Buffalo Bills, they have no receiving options at the moment, aside from Benjamin, who they just picked up. The tight end is hurt. He was the number one option. Without receiving options, they've been forced to use McCoy a little bit more and in different ways, and McCoy has responded the way McCoy always does. He puts up numbers. That's going to draw your defense in. Calvin Benjamin has the size and the speed to take on defenses down the field. I'm not afraid to start him this week.
Really?
If I'm an owner. I'm putting him in there.
I'm scared.
I'm putting him in there, and I'm letting it ride on Thursday Night Football, something we don't usually talk about here because of when we shoot the show. But
so you're starting him on Thursday night after a trade on a short week?
Absolutely.
Oh,
if I had him. With the 6 teams on a bye, and if you have Calvin Benjamin, he's probably in there as your number 2, possibly your number 1 wide receiver. You got to start that guy, especially against the Jets defense, and especially, like you said, Tyrod Taylor has a new toy.
Yeah.
Everybody likes to play with the new toy. So that leaves Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco. Hey, listen, I'm a Patriots fan. I know all about Jimmy G. He's good enough to propel the Patriots to 3-0 without Tom Brady. He is good enough to win football games, and he might be good enough to become a franchise quarterback in San Francisco. Don't expect to see it this year because the only toy he's got to play with is Pierre Garçon.
Yeah, this is a strictly keeper league question. If you're in a year-to-year league, not even on your radar.
Yeah, not until he proves otherwise. I mean, who knows? Maybe he goes up there and starts lighting it up in San Francisco. I just don't see it. There's not a lot of weapons. They don't have a great offensive line, and the running game just is not clicking up there. So that's all the time we have for That Football Show with those fantasy guys.
We are those fantasy guys. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, Jay's off next week. Remember, if you have questions for us, look for the Shield TFS on Facebook. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.